straightens out those whose backs are not so straight, right? So we had a whole explanation last week, but this week we're going to go in a little bit of a different direction. We're going to speak about Zokev Kefufim. We say when a person sleeps, person is like crouched down, and when they wake up, they straighten out their back, right? So there's 2 points to it. One was, we said last week, that when a human being, his head is higher than the rest of his body, then you see the greatness of the human, that the mind is higher than the heart. And we spoke about mind over matter, and that whole spiritual Kabbalistic explanation, which we gave last week. We mentioned last week that there was another aspect to it. And the other aspect is pride. To be proud Jews, to stand up straight, and you're standing crouched down, that means you are embarrassed of who you are. You're embarrassed of your Judaism. As Jews, we need to be proud. When a Jew is proud, the world treats him in a different way. So Zokev Kefufim, the bracha on page 6 in the Siddur. You give a look again. The bracha Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam Zokev Kefufim. He who straightens the bowed. So it says by the story of Purim, Mordechai lo yichra v'lo yishtachab. Mordechai never bowed down for Haman. He was proud of who he was. He was proud of a Jew. Haman wanted the Jews to bow down to him, but he refused. And this is one of the important concepts of the Jewish people, to be proud of our Jewishness. Unfortunately, you have a lot of times Jews who are not so proud of themselves. Not always so proud. And we need to tell them again and again, to be a Jew is a wonderful thing. To be Jewish, to be empowered by God with our Jewishness, something we should be very, very proud, and we should keep our heads upright and walk with our chests out and our heads up, and be proud of our Yiddishkeit. You know, there was once a story of a fellow that was on the plane, and he's sitting, and he's suddenly the person that sits down next to him is a guy with a long beard, a black hat, and he was a secular Jew. He wasn't very proud of that part of the Jewish community. You know, he was a little embarrassed, in fact, by the religious Jews. Sometimes you have people who are embarrassed of religious Jews. It reminds them of their old heritage. They consider themselves modern people. So he's sitting on the plane, and a guy sits down next to him. This guy with the long beard, the black hat, the black suit. And he's getting all uncomfortable. He's all fidgety. He's not comfortable with the person sitting next to him on the plane. And after the plane takes off, he starts talking to the guy next to him. And he says, be honest with you. I'm so embarrassed of you guys. You dress like the olden times. You're so backward, archaic. Get with the times. Put on a nice blue suit, a nice blue tie. Don't walk around in a black suit. The old-fashioned people. What are you wearing? The beard, the long beard. I'm a Jew, he says, but I just can't. I don't know. It makes me feel like Jews should be modern. Learn from the new world, right? The guy that's sitting next to him says, I don't know how to tell you this, sir, but I'm not Jewish. So what do you mean not Jewish? He says, I'm Amish. I'm Amish. I come from Amish people. This is the way we dress. The Jew felt also embarrassed. He didn't mean to embarrass somebody else, for another people. He said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to embarrass you." He says, "Actually, you guys, I'm really proud of you guys. You guys, you stand up for what you believe in. You don't change with the times. You're strong. Despite all the winds of change, you are always there exactly the way you were from the beginning of time. I always love the Amish people. They're really good. Keep on doing what you're doing." The guy that's next to him says, "Excuse me, sir, I think you made a mistake again. The truth is, I'm a chassid. I'm a Hasidic Jew. I just wanted to make a point." And his point was loud and clear. That when it's Jewish, we get all embarrassed of the Jews, right? But when it's an Amish guy or someone from another religion, we say, "Oh, you guys are so wonderful, so great." This story happened with the rabbi, a very famous rabbi, passed away a few years ago. His name was Rabbi Avrohom Tursky. He was the guy. He was the guy that was sitting next to the secular Jew, and he played this whole game, charade, but he brought out a point. But as Jews, we need to be proud of ourselves, proud of our heritage, proud of each other, and not to be embarrassed. There's a famous clip of a fellow, Larry David. He's a comedian, Jewish comedian. Some of his jokes are a little off color, but he decided he wanted to be open-minded. Him and his friends, they decided they're going to go to Arabic Palestinian restaurant, chicken restaurant or something that they opened up in the neighborhood. And he wanted to show they're open-minded. They're going to make peace with the Palestinians. They're going in there. And we had two of his friends coming with him. One of his friends, last minute, he decided, "I'm not going to walk into this place over here, you know what I mean, where they don't like Israelis." So he decided he's going to put on a kippah, a yarmulke. So he arrived, his third friend arrives, forget his name, arrives, put on a kippah. And Larry David and his friend are all embarrassed. "Why you keep going with the kippah? Can't take it off. Take it off." He says, "Take off the yarmulke." Tries grabbing him. So "You can't touch my yarmulke. I'm a proud Jew." No, yeah. Anyways, they're going through this whole charade. And then the guy leaves. Third guy leaves, and Larry and his more secular friend, they make their way to the restaurant. Meanwhile, everyone in the restaurant, all of the Palestinians, they're watching this whole thing. And when they come in, yay, good job. But then Larry David sees, they're happy because he was telling the other guy to take off his yarmulke. So a lady walks over to him and says, "Wow, incredible what you just did. It's so beautiful." Larry says, "Yeah." She says, "Yeah, what's your name, by the way?" He says, "My name is Chaim Yankel. Ben Moshe Berel." Suddenly he started feeling Jewish too, because when the anti-Semites start to be happy about the Jews fighting, the Jews wake up. It's sort of the human condition. But we know the Jews, sometimes we need challenges in the world to wake us up and to make us proud of our Jewishness. It's coming up Rosh Hashanah and then Yom Kippur, and then we get the holiday of Sukkot. Right? So the holiday of Sukkot, we take then 4 kinds. We take the etrog, the lulav, the hadassim, the rovs. So it says that each one of those different kinds of fruits and branches that we take are to remind us of different things. So the esrog is shaped like the heart. It reminds us that the Jew, you have to have a good heart. The myrtle branch, the hadassim, they're shaped like eyes, shows us that you have to have a good eye. And the aravas, the branches, the leaves are shaped like ellipse. The long, elongated leaves reminds us that we have to speak good things. But then the fourth thing is the lulav. The lulav is a straight branch, from the palm. It's a palm frond. It's called a palm frond, and it's a straight branch. And the lulav must be straight; it can't be crooked. So it tells us that the lulav reminds us of the spine. So what's so important about remembering the spine? That as Jews, we have to have our spine. We have to have a lulav. It's not bent over, but it's proud. So to be a good Jew, you have to have a good heart. You have to speak nicely. You have to look nicely at other people, but you also need to be proud. That's a very important thing. The lulav reminds us that we need to be straight. And if the lulav is crooked, bent over, not a kosher lulav. We need to have a stamina. Torah tells us, Hashem gave us, we are stiff-necked people. The Jewish people are stiff-necked people. Am kshei oref. We're stiff-necked people. Why? Why are we stiff-necked people? Why is that so important? Because that means we're a little bit like akshonim. You know, an action is a stubborn. Some Jews like stubborn mules. They don't give it. That's the way Hashem created us, with stubborn people. We wouldn't be stubborn. We happen to be the most stubborn people since the creation of the world. Every other nation disappeared. We, because of our stubbornness, we're still here after thousands of years. Everybody else gave in to the winds of time, and they just sort of disappeared on the horizon. But the Jews were still here. 3,300 years later, actually 3,700 years since Abraham. 3,800 years since the birth of Abraham. So we're like an old people. So this stubbornness has served us well. But at the same time that we're stubborn, we also have to use that stiff neck thing. We have a strong neck. We have a strong spine. We have to use it also to be proud and not to be embarrassed of our Jewishness. Like I said before, sometimes, unfortunately, the only time we wake up is when the anti-Semites come out and the Jews become proud. Fortunately, that's the way it works. You know, it says, in the Torah, it says, Timche ezecher Amalek. You should erase the memory of the Amalekites. The Amalekites is those anti-Semites. So it says erase their memory. But there's two ways of reading it. If you would have been in shul last week, they read that section where it says to erase the memory of the Amalekites. There's two ways to read the word for the memory. One is zecher, and one is zecher. Timche ezecher Amalek means erase their memory. Timche, or you could be read Timche ezecher Amalek, erase the reminder of Amalek. What's the difference between when we say in Hebrew zecher or zecher? And two ways of reading the same words. Some actually read it one time as zecher and another time as zecher. Others read, because in the Hebrew, in the Torah, there's no vowels. So there's two traditions of how to read it. So some read it just to cover all bases. They say zecher zecher or zecher zecher to make sure they get the right pronunciation. But why is it so important? Is there really a difference between saying erase the memory of the Amalekites or the reminder of the Amalekites? Yes, there is a big difference. The memory of the Amalekites, we know what that means. Just don't remember the anti-Semites, get rid of them, get rid of their memory, get rid of those bad thoughts of them, erase them from our mind. They're not part of our lives. But there's another reading, erase the reminder of Amalekites. Zecher means the reminder. What's the reminder? The reminder means that in every generation there always is an Amalek that serves as a reminder for us, for the Jews. There's the memory of them, and then there's a reminder of them. They serve as a reminder that remind us Jews that we are Jews. It's what happens in Israel, it happens over and over again. It gets very, very calm, and then the Jews start fighting with each other. And then the Jews start fighting with each other, then the enemies feel weakness, and then they come at us. And there's an intifada or this or that. Why? Because when we are weak and we forget who we are, and we forget our how great we should be, then the enemies come at us. They pounce at us, and then we become stiff-necked again, we become strong. That's like a vicious cycle. But that is, the pasuk says, Zokev Kifufim. The bracha that we say every morning, we say, blessed are you, God, King of the universe, who straightens the bowed. That we need to be proud Jews, not only in the bad circumstances, not only when things are tough, but also when things are good. Because there's lots to be proud for, and we should stand straight like the like a lot of times you have kids in school, they're not so proud of their Jewishness. I always tell them it's the most important thing. When a Jew is proud of their Jewishness, then the people of the world treat us differently. When they see we're not proud of who we are, then they pounce on us. So it's so important to be proud Jews. During World War II, during the Holocaust, there was one very famous Hasidic rabbi who actually recorded some of the most famous stories about the Holocaust. There are a lot of different stories, but there was a book that was written a number of years ago, maybe 50, 60 years ago, about 50 years ago. It's a book called Hasidic Tales of the Holocaust. And it's written by a professor in Brooklyn College in New York, whose name is Yafa Eliach. Look it up, it's a great book. It's called The Hasidic Tales of the Holocaust. And she writes stories that she heard from Hasidic people, Hasidic rabbis, stories that happened during the Holocaust. And one of her main sources is a rabbi named the Bluzhever Rebbe. Is Rabbi Israel Spiro. He is a very famous rabbi who lived through the Holocaust. He was a younger rabbi at the time. He lived many, many years afterwards in Brooklyn, and she interviewed him, and she heard many, many stories. And one of the most telling tales of the Holocaust that she records is the story of Yom Kippur. Kippur in the concentration camp. Kippur, the Jews, every day was Yom Kippur for them. Every day during the Holocaust, they all suffered every day of Yom Kippur. Every day was like a Yom Kippur. They had no food. They would get a little bit of a watery soup with a hard piece of bread. The soup with no flavor. That's what they ate, not the Holocaust. So on Yom Kippur, the Jews tried to get around it. When they heard it was Yom Kippur, I don't even know how they knew the date. But when they heard it was Yom Kippur, the Jews tried not to eat on that day. The Bluzhever Rebbe says he remembers they were in the bunker and they were given a job then that day to hard work. They had to brush the floors, scrub the floors. So him and his friend, they were scrubbing the floors together. And he says, as a rabbi, I remember the Kol Nidre by heart. I remember the Sana Toikif, who will live and who will die, all the prayers, especially for Yom Kippur. And he was scrubbing the floor in the bunker together with his best friend. And he remembers they were singing the songs together while they were working. They were singing the Al-Chait, all the different songs of that's popular and common amongst the Jewish people. And as they're doing it, lunch came. And lunch came and the Nazi came in, but the Nazis, they were really vicious. They knew it was Yom Kippur. So they came with the nicest lunch. The best, like a lunch that the people in the main hall were getting, the Germans were getting. They brought their food. And they gave it to the Jews because they wanted to say, okay, okay, everybody, it's lunch now. We brought you today a special treats. So today, everybody come and eat. And they knew that it was Yom Kippur. They saw that the Nazis saw that the Jews were avoiding lining up. He says, I know why you guys are not eating. It's Yom Kippur today. You're not allowed to eat. He said, I'm not going to let you guys get away with that. There's no religion over here. Jewish religion is a curse. We're going to get rid of it to have our way. Everybody here must eat right now. And there was in every group there was a capo. Capo was like a Jewish guy who was in charge of everybody else. And his job was to make sure that the Jews would do what they're supposed to do, work with the way they're supposed to. The capos were usually like Jews that were listening to the Germans. And they were a little bit, some people consider them a bit of traitors, because they were the ones who would go, they would whip the Jews, and that was their job, to whip the Jews and make sure the Jews worked hard. And so there was a capo there. And so the German turns to the capo and says, Schneeweiss, his name was Schneeweiss. Schneeweiss, I want you to force the Jews to eat. Schneeweiss says, how can I force them to eat? Today is Yom Kippur. The Nazi says, you too? You also believe in this Yom Kippur? He points the gun to Schneeweiss, says, Schneeweiss, es, fress. He says, I know you also don't want to eat now. I'm going to make an example of you. Eat. And Schneeweiss, who was sort of a traitor to the people, he was a capo. He tells the Nazi, no, I can't eat. Like something came out of him, that although he was sold to the Nazis in all other ways, on Yom Kippur, he couldn't get himself to eat. The Nazi says, you eat. He says, if you don't, I'm going to shoot you. Schneeweiss says, no, I'm not eating on Yom Kippur. And the Nazi takes his gun and shoots the man in his head. Rabbi Spiro remembers that. He says, wow, incredible. Here you had a Jew who in all other ways abandoned the Jewish people. He was on the Nazi team. But came Yom Kippur, suddenly out of nowhere, his pride came up and he stood up straight and he said to the Nazi, I'm not eating on Yom Kippur. He says, then I knew that every Jew has it within them, that incredible pride that we don't even know where it comes from. They stand up and they say, Zoker kefufim, even a Jew that's kafuf, that's bent over, when it comes the moment, he's ready to stand up for Hashem, for the Jewish people. And he died as a proud Jew, not eating on Yom Kippur. Incredible story of Schneeweiss, the capo in the concentration camp. Rabbi said this is in a very, very important aspect of our Jewish identity, of our Jewishness, is to stand up and to be proud of our Yiddishkeit. I find in my business and my work, whenever I go to visit people who are not Jewish, whether it's in politics or whether it's in the Markham Council or whether it's on the Ontario level, the federal level, there's an incredible amount of respect for me, which I find even more than other people, because I'm a very, very identifiable Jew. And I stand for what I believe in. I'm proud of it. I'm very fine with them. I'm kind to the people. But there is an incredible amount of respect that's out there for Jews, despite what we hear about anti-Semitism and all that. The average non-Jew has incredible, like they stand in awe of the Jewish people. I find that every time we have a conversation or meet up with the other clergy, when we do some work for the community, there's an incredible amount of in the people of the world. All we need to do is stand up and say, I'm a Jew and I'm proud. We all know the story of Daniel Pearl, the famous journalist who was at the wrong place at the wrong time. A number of years ago, the terrorists got a hold of him, and in public, he was killed publicly. was decapitated, whatever. Exactly. But before that, they say, what's your last words? It says, my name is Daniel Pearl. I'm a Jew. My father is a Jew. My mother is a Jew. And I'm proud to be a Jew. That was his last words. Daniel Pearl who was like sort of a secular guy, but he was a journalist who was caught by the Taliban's, whoever it was then. And those were his last words. Where does it come from? Nobody knows. Where does that kind of pride come from? The last second in a person's life, a whole life, he doesn't, but the moment at the ultimate test, stand up strong and stand up for Hashem. So this is the bracha Zokev Kufum. Now we move on to the fifth bracha, which is blessed are you, God, King of the universe, who clothes the naked. That's the next one, right? Now for this, I have for you a whole lot to talk about. Okay, every line in there is a beautiful line. But first today, we're just going to talk about what the simple meaning is. When a person wakes up by day and you thank Hashem for giving you clothes, you can get dressed, that you have the koyach to put on your clothing. And some people can't put on their clothing. They get up in the morning, they need somebody to help them to get dressed. If you can get dressed yourself, that's a nice thing. So we thank Hashem for Hashem giving us the ability to be clothed. That's already like just getting up is one thing, but then there's the fine motor skills. You have to put on your socks, your shoes, pants, shirt, get dressed. It's very, very important that we have the koyach to do it. But in addition to that, there's many, many spiritual aspects of the concept of garments. Because garments is a very interesting thing. What are garments? They used to say clothes makes the man. How you dress, how you present yourself, that makes the man. That's on the one hand. Clothes beautify a person, they adorn a person, they embellish the person. But on the other hand, clothes is really external to the person. It's not really who the person is. Sometimes you want to dig past the clothing and see the real person. And I just heard the story of a young man who was a motorcycle driver for many years, and he had lots of tattoos. You know, today people put on tattoos left, right, and center. It's become lately like the whole thing. People are embellishing their whole body with all kinds of paint. And we know as Jews, we're not allowed to put on tattoos. But there was this fellow who used to be a motorcycle driver. Then he started studying, and when he got older, he started studying Torah, and he really was turned on to Judaism, and he made like a turn. And he started coming to shul. And before Rosh Hashanah, he heard that it's a custom for Jewish men to go to the mikveh, to go to immerse in a ritual bath. So he thought, wow, that's great for me, especially because I've gone through so much of past shady past. I want to start turn a new leaf, so I'm going to go to the mikveh before Rosh Hashanah. I'll go before Rosh Hashanah, before Yom Kippur. Some Jews go every Shabbos, others go every day. So he went to an all men's mikveh, and there was lots of people that day because it was it's like a bathhouse, and they all come there. They come to go to the mikveh. And he was a little bit embarrassed because his whole body, he had these tattoos, all kinds of lewd tattoos with all kinds of, I can't even tell you what was on his body, things that a rabbi can't say. Imagine. So he had all these kind of things on his body. So what did he do? He threw like towels over his shoulder, a few towels, all around him. He had lots of towels. So nobody should see it. So when he went to the shower and then to the mikveh. So he didn't want, so as he's walking, He's doing this whole thing with his towels. Suddenly his towels fell down. All his towels fell off. And his face turned red. Like he was so embarrassed. There's some older men that were there. And they also felt bad for him because he felt so bad about the fact that his whole past was shown in public over there, in the public bath house, mikveh. So there was an old man that was there and noticed that this happened. And he went over to him and he said, "Young man, you have nothing to be embarrassed of. I see you're very embarrassed of all this narishkeit that you have painted on your body. You're embarrassed with it." He says, "Don't be embarrassed." He says, "We all have our past. We all have our past. You have your past, I have my past." And he rolls up, he shows him on his arm, he shows him the numbers from the Holocaust. He was a survivor of Auschwitz. He says, "I'm from Auschwitz." He says, "Here's my past. Here is my tattoo that I'm not so proud of." He says, "I have my past." He says, "Boy, and you have your past that maybe you're not so proud of." He says, "Today is Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. We're both going to turn a new leaf. I'm going to forget about my trauma of my past, and you'll forget the trauma of your past. Let's both go together. We'll go to the mikveh now. We'll go to shul, and we'll start a brand new, happy and healthy new." So this is what he's saying. Sometimes a garment, you have to get beyond the externals, beyond the tattoos of life, and to dig down deeper to say we're not defined by these external paintings, external clothing, external things that we put deep down. We're all pure. But we need sometimes someone to just remind us of that. So Hashem should help us. We all should have a Shana Tova, a happy and healthy new year. I'll still see you next week on Mitzvah Shem on Wednesday. But I wish everybody all the best. Have a good Shabbos and a good and happy and healthy year. And I just read, I think Eddie gave us a bracha. Hashana Tova Masukah. So everyone have a happy and healthy, sweet new year. All the best to everybody. Okay?
Rabbi, you said we're going to meet next Wednesday. Is it Wednesday or Thursday?
I'm sorry, Thursday. I've been able bottle.
Welcome to the club.
It's Thursday. I'm sorry. It's Thursday. Yeah. I was just testing you to see if you were paying attention. Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Rabbi. Shabbat shalom to everybody.
Anyone have any questions? Anyone? You're welcome. A question? Anybody?
Rabbi,
Sonia, you have something to ask.
I've got a question.
Go ahead.
It's okay. You go first. I'll go.
When you were talking about tattoos, I was reminded a few years ago when my late mother-in-law, may she rest in peace, was in North York General Hospital, and she is an Auschwitz survivor. So she had a tattoo. And one of the nurses that was taking care of her came, "Oh, hi, oh, you have your boyfriend's phone number here." That was such a shocker for her. She got so upset that how primitive. So this, I went to the head nurse and so on, and they started a program for the young nurses about the area that they are working in, which is North York, occupied by many Jewish families, and how much more sensitive they should approach when they see a tattoo. Sorry, I didn't want to take your time. Just wanted to mention about the tattoos.
I have another 2 or 3 stories about that, but it's going to take too much time. So I just will thank you very much for that story. It's
welcome.
Amazing story. Who else wanted to ask something?
Something last week, Rabbi, you were speaking about the ways in which we should sleep and not sleep. And I wondered if you could elaborate a little bit more about that. I'd never ever heard anything about that.
Yeah, I know it's quite an obscure thing, right? Yeah, so it's the Gemara, it says a person shouldn't sleep on their back because that's like a sign of haughtiness. Nor should a person cuddle up just on their stomach. So that's too much humility. You're supposed to sleep like on your side. And it says you should try to wake up on your right side. So you go to sleep on the left side, and through the course of the night, you try to wake up try to turn over in the middle of the night and wake up on your right side. So you start off on the right side in the morning. It's a little hard thing to accomplish because we're not so in control when we're sleeping, but people can train themselves. They wake up. So if you find yourself, you're waking up on your left side in the morning, go to sleep for 5 more minutes and then wake up on your right side. So you can end up at the end on the right side. But it's in the Shulchan Aruch, actually. It's in the Code of Jewish Law. I'm giving you one of the reasons. There's other reasons associated that really have to do more to men than to women, but there are a few reasons given for these sort of positions that we spoke about. That's basically what it is.
Thank you.
Okay, Chavre, a guten Shabbos.
A good Shabbos. Thanks so
Thank you.
much for everything.
Bye.
Nice to see everybody.
Good Shabbos. Thank you so much, Rabbi.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Rabbi.
you. Thank you. Thank you, Rabbi.
18.